Jim Lycano with HPE. I lead the SAP private cloud sales efforts. And joining me today is Kelly Smith from SAP. And Kelly, your role?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Kelly Smith, I'm the Vice President of SAP covering the South Market Unit. So been with SAP for 6 years focusing on ERP strategy.
And also on the line on Zoom is one of our most valued customers, Randall Grogan. Randall?
Good morning. I'm sorry I couldn't be there this morning. I'm Randall Grogan. I'm Senior Director of Energy Transfer. Have responsibility for financial systems, including SAP, and glad I could join this conversation.
Excellent. Thank you. Let's jump right in. So we're going to cover today the agenda on session one. There's 5 sessions. We're going to jump in for 15 minutes for each one. And first, we're going to talk about how legacy SAP ERP customers are nearly out of time, which means out of support. We're going to have Kelly present what this SAP Cloud ERP option looks like, built upon the GreenLake Cloud Infrastructure as a Service from HPE. We'll talk about modern hybrid cloud and why that's important because customers need choices. And we're going to have Randall talk extensively about why he chose the solution, why it fits best, and what value it provides his business. And then we're going to talk about modern cloud for the AI world, why hybrid comes out of necessity, even if it's by accident. So let's jump in. As we begin, legacy customers for SAP are nearly out of support, but I have to cover some definitions first. Is anybody familiar with SAP and their environments out of the delegates here? Yeah. And is this a big or small undertaking to make a SAP move or do an upgrade or change data centers?
It's enormous.
Good answer.
It's enormous. Yeah. So the point here is that the time duration for large organizations or any organization that really adopts SAP, it's built into the fabric of the organization. There's so much around there. So I threw out some definitions on the screen for ERP and things for people that aren't familiar with the terminology. But HANA is SAP's database that came out in about 2010 and about 2010. And in 2015, S/4HANA, the product, the ERP product that runs on that database became available. So what we're going to talk about today is SAP's newest product and implementation methodology, SAP Cloud ERP. And it's sold in 2 editions, and there's actually 3 different options. So Cloud ERP is the public edition. That is a true software as a service offering, and that offering is delivered for less complex customers that are okay with going greenfield and have less complexity, including customizations and things that they want to do. So the private edition is geared towards the customers that may want brownfield. They can still go greenfield, but they might want to move their systems into this new product, and they might want to do some customization and things like that. And then they have integration of different types. So the 2 options are to deploy either in a hyperscale public cloud or deploy in any data center that meets the minimum requirements. So they're both the same. And so SAP has primarily focused on hyperscale cloud, and a lot of businesses have adopted that. Most businesses have adopted that, but there's only one issue. If you look at the adoption rate as of the end of calendar year 2024, the analysts have reported that 39% of all legacy ERP customers on SAP's client list have even bought licenses for S4. So there's a reason that something's just not working here fast enough. People are either procrastinating this decision, they're not adopting this for some reason. And we know it's a monumental undertaking, but they've had 10 years to do it. So we look at that, we look at the fact that RISE was created as a methodology to make it easier for people to focus on what they do, managing their business, and not focusing on what SAP should be doing, and that's patching and keeping SAP up to date. So 85% of those cloud ERP customers that have chosen this solution are less than 5 billion. Might hint that maybe there's some complexity involved for bigger business. And 2/3 of the cloud customers are net new to SAP. So SAP has done a tremendous job, and you can look at their stock price. They've done a tremendous job at this offering and getting people to adopt it. However, the legacy ERP customers are lagging behind. And so this whole presentation and the whole concept of discussion here is to say, why did this happen? Why is it happening now, and how can we help it along? And Kelly, I think as we look at this, my philosophy, and Randall too, I think the idea is that we may be asking for too much change, disruption, and risk all at once. And that's really the concept here is not, is it best to put it in the hyperscale cloud? Is it best to put it in or keep it in your current data center, even if you don't own your data center? Maybe it's in a co-location, you want to leave it there. I don't know what the answer is. It doesn't make a difference what the answer is. The answer is, how do we get more people to adopt this solution?
Absolutely. And just a couple comments there. I mean, I think that, in previous, if you heard the word SAP or the company SAP, a lot of people would say rigid, holds you in place, not flexible, challenging. And, under Christian Klein's leadership, when he came in as CEO, being a technical expert, he comes in and says, okay, wait, we've got to become more flexible for our customers. We've got to be able to offer them optionality in moving this gargantuous ERP, and how do we do that, right? So having the ability to offer options like customer data center is one of those ways in which we have the flexibility to do so. And, this number of 39% is low for what our target is for. But if we look at the overall customer base, we have 7,200 customers on or moving to cloud ERP, whether it be public or private cloud. So the momentum is building, given the fact that we're now getting feedback and understanding those early adopters and those early movers, how to make it better and streamline the process while allowing some of the optionality of toolkits and methodologies to help within the process. So that number is climbing significantly, which we're excited about. And obviously, one of the components in which we're doing that is through CDC.
Yeah, and so CDC stands for Customer Data Center Option. And the point here is that you don't have to move your data center if you don't want to. And like I say, it's not a question of which one's better. It's just what's the least amount of risk. And so this transition option, which is the new thing that was introduced just at SAP's customer conference Sapphire a few weeks ago, this transition option is an option that SAP will allow you to move at your pace, not just on product, but you don't have to move your data center either. So they're making it easier and easier. So if you follow the Americas user group and the German-speaking and French-speaking user groups, those are probably the most vocal user groups. They usually say SAP is rigid. I think just the opposite right now. We're doing everything we can to make this flexible for people to not have to put them into a position of too much business disruption to them. So I think the primary reasons, and this is up for discussion, but my guess is, and a lot of the analysts are saying, that there's a lot of business disruption to move SAP. Whether you're simply moving data centers, whether you're moving from your current data center to another, whether you're doing more things at the same time for digital transformation, AI, different analytics. And there's downtime risk for not just SAP, but the non-SAP dependent systems. And I think most analysts see that in cloud transitions, the number one obstacle to moving anything to the cloud, even for great reasons when they're microservices based and everything.
Hey, Jim.
Yep. Please.
One question. Is cloud ERP the only follow-on solution? They can't use the old SAP ERP anymore after 2027?
No, that's an important
one of the flexibility options, right? So you have your ECC environment, which is 6.0, or whatever your version is of that, and that has an end of maintenance in 2027 currently today.
Extended standalone like that, or?
Extended maintenance goes to 2030.
I'm not talking extended maintenance. I'm talking about a new product that sits a similar functionality, but not cloud ERP. There isn't anything.
There's the ERP product itself, S/4HANA has no end of support listed, but the newest innovation and feature set goes into the cloud ERP version of that.
Right.
So that's correct. There's no end. You have to be on S/4HANA to get support, but there's no end of support for S/4HANA, even if you don't move to cloud ERP, but you will miss out on the newest innovation, including the AI innovation right now.
Okay, thanks.
So the reasons for this are, and there's a lot of confusion in the market space right now, and similar to that question, like, oh, cloud ERP, are we losing support for the S/4HANA ERP product? No, you're not. But and then the change at, like any software company, there's a million changes and name changes that happen, and people get confused. So I list a couple of confusions. So if a customer runs S/4HANA perpetual license in the public cloud, SAP would classify them as an on-premise customer because that's an on-premise license that doesn't generate cloud revenue for SAP. So it's all in the eyes of the beholder. If a customer runs Cloud ERP on their on-premises data center, SAP would classify the customer as a Cloud ERP customer, which is contrary to a lot of the terminology that we use. So you can imagine the amount of confusion in the marketplace right now. And so really what we're saying in this whole concept is, if we clear up the confusion and make it easier, we'll have more success. And that's what's happened inside of HPE. So without sharing specific numbers, if you look at the revenue growth for this particular product, which is our GreenLake Cloud Infrastructure as a Service, underneath, we provide all of the hardware as a service and the services and support as a service to SAP, who in turn sells the whole kit platform as a service to a customer. And so we've had tremendous success in this product so far, and it's only heating up, and I think it's going to heat up even more with those tailored options. And then people will say, which customer examples does it fit? We'll speak to the energy, because Randall is from that company. Randall Grogan's on the line with us right now as our prized customer, and then a few other ones I'll note here. There's a technology customer that will probably use us to sell to more people, more customers, and a manufacturing customer that speaks a lot, and actually will be speaking at the HPE Customer Conference in a few more weeks. So it doesn't fit one industry. It's really more about choices and openness in the market. So I wanted to just have we've got a few minutes for just an open chat on what your ideas are for maybe how this fits customers and how we can make sure that people are aware of the fact that there isn't just this limited choice. And Kelly and Randall are available to answer any questions you might have about, what does modern cloud need today? What do people need as they try to decide this complicated equation of where each workload goes and at what time, and what does it work with, and how do we make it talk to each other?
With the ERP system, it's not an easy answer, right? Because I think how many customers you have, that so many options of the deployments, duration of that, right? I think that when you sit in the shoes of company that needs to invest again a couple millions to switch their processes, because I don't think that it's basically problem of the software, is everything around it, right? The core stays the same, more or less, right? You just can spice it with AI a little bit, do some fancy features, but if the cars doesn't go from the production line, it doesn't matter, right?
Right.
So I think the integrations will be the key here. What the integrations outside the system you have, and how much you can move them around outside your infrastructure, or you need to keep them inside. And for me, I'm not focused on SAP in my career, but it's always somewhere there, right? And honestly speaking, it's one of the most complicated integration systems at the customer side. So that's why they don't want to move. Don't touch the things that it works, and even if it's fancy feature at the end, hanging as a fruit, well, the CTO have some certain time in the company. If they will make mistake, it's going to be very short time. Especially in ERP. So it's very delicate system.
It's funny because I worked in small to medium size ERP for a while too, and there's so much fewer integration pieces. But when I work for my own company now as Hewlett Packard Enterprise, we look at the monumental systems that we have in the touch points between the systems. Even if it's only a dozen applications, we have hundreds of integration points that are feeding data back and forth. So it's never SAP in a vacuum. It's SAP and all its dependent ecosystem, all as one big family ecosystem that works together.
Right.
I think to push customers to move into the new version or new delivery method, right? There need to be a success story behind it, because nobody will go just for change. Success story for CTO, for somebody who will really get a back out of it, if they're going to be success.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's been a strategy that SAP's kind of looked at in this year is the personas, right? So how do we meet the demand of the CFO, the CTO, the CIO? the CPO and what is the winning recipe across those profiles to say this is why you should move. So a lot of this boils down to obviously what is the business case for each of these individuals. So, Randall, I think you can speak to this when you're on stage here soon, but between Randall and his team, and I help support Randall and the team moving to RISE or Cloud ERP, we have a roles and responsibilities list of over 1,200 line items that goes into analysis of what's the responsibility of the customer, what's the responsibility of the partner, and what's the responsibility of SAP. That's one component to look at. How does that optimize your run? How do you run today easier, letting SAP take some of the burden? Then it comes into, okay, do I stay with my S4 system as it is or my ECC system as it is and just migrate it? What's the cost? Or if I'm going to transform, what is the value that CFO is going to see in doing such? So we have a whole ecosystem of SAP called Value Advisory that puts together business cases. And the best business cases outcome is when the customer is ingrained and embedded doing it with you. And Randall and his team were instrumental in doing that. I think the group became, probably I talk to them more on a daily basis than my husband at some point because of all of the in-depth conversations we were having to make sure that this made sense from a technical perspective, a business perspective, and a cost perspective.
Yeah, I think that generally SAP projects are more about business environment and politics inside the corporation than truly a technology. It's follow, right, after that.
Yeah.
Because it needs to be set somewhere, right, or HPE or cloud or wherever place. But this discussion, what the incentive, what the success stories behind it, what the value bring, that's the first step. And
absolutely.
Usually, if this step doesn't done by your, inducted by you, you will not want to move.
Up 100%.
And your conversation about the different personas, and maybe we jump right into the next section. Yeah, go ahead.
Why is the private option the best kept secret here? I'm trying to understand.
Sure. I think that, so when we look at
SAP tried to avoid when they're selling it?
No, absolutely not. So you have SAP's strategy is cloud, right? So we want to eventually move all of our customers to a public cloud option. However, if you are a big
cloud, you're talking about the SaaS solution, not the private.
Correct. On a hyperscaler that's designated for you, much like our cloud software solutions of SuccessFactors, Ariba, they're in that public cloud, they're run by SAP. You get what you get out of the box, right?
Right.
But if you look at our customer base who have been customers for 20 plus years, they've built complexity in their ERP. And there are 20, 30, 40, 50,000 customizations, all of the integrations, and plus the suite. So what we've done is we said, okay, well, you can go into a private cloud environment and you have your option of hyperscaler choice. 99% of my customers in my large enterprise ecosystem are private cloud customers, and I absolutely support that because our solution in public cloud isn't baked enough yet to push all of our customers like an energy transfer into public cloud. It's not there.
Is the challenge all the integrations that it would require to implement? I mean, SaaS versus the integrations, is that the issue?
It's that.
It's a combination
of control of when you do the upgrades and patching and things like that. So people have this huge governance process for when they incorporate a patch into their larger environment. And in SaaS, you don't get to make all those calls. And so you talk about SaaS, I mean, you can, at the most extreme level, you could look at the off-the-shelf products that you can buy right now just by going online, putting in your credit card. And those are really simple and they're available immediately, but they don't allow the customization and the control when it, maybe there's a new patch in there and you've got something that you've got an API that's firing and maybe that change happens to that API and now it's not going to fire properly. So I think the bigger companies are more hesitant and resistant to that. And my argument is, I'm not sure they're ever going to go to that because there are systems that are off the shelf right now. And some big companies will adopt that public cloud model because that's a simpler division that follows a more simple process. Yet I think there's always going to be opportunity for that private edition that people need that level of control.
The best kept secret, what we're talking about today, is the ability to have a custom data center, meaning you own your data center And we have the strategic partnership with HPE with the ability to do that. So certain customers, Energy Transfer being one of them, said, I have other businesses on my data center. I want my own I want security of having and knowing where my data center is. I want control of that. And so that is some of the conversations we get in with customers that say, well, I'm not ready to move out of my data center because XYZ. I want my data. I want to own it. I'm not letting that go. That's where this option of customer data center is you owning your data center and having SAP run it on your behalf through the same cloud private ERP, but HPE hardware.
That's the point. I mean, Raf from Italy. So the point is that I bring the voice of cloud service providers, and Italy, Europe is concerned about sovereignty. So
yes,
one of the reasons to have a private cloud is to keep data inside. As a CSP, is it possible to move the data from customer data centers that maybe they are old and as a hardware to national service provider? And the question is it possible to have a multi-tenancy on that installation?
It's coming. So on this particular one, the multi-customer option is not out yet, but there are service providers. Portugal is one in the public sector. It's a customer in Portugal that's using it for various agencies within the cloud service provider. They are a cloud service provider for the country of Portugal. So we have had success. We've done different things. We have EU access for people accessing the CSP data center only. So when you want to say, I want some level of sovereignty around labor, it gets a little more complicated as you talk about management services and support services because it is global in nature, but we can start to put together those things. And those are kind of special requests that we handle, on a one-off basis. But yes, cloud service providers are absolutely part of this ecosystem. And we would encourage cloud service providers to look at this solution, especially when there's some geopolitical situations getting in the way.